Let's check in with Scott Reid, CTV News political commentator. Scott, good to have you with us. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
What do you expect to be the big highlights in this budget this year?
Well, I think they've teased it. I mean, first of all, let's go to the core politics of it. One thing we know we don't have to worry about is whether or not the government's going to get defeated on this budget, because it is a minority parliament. But because that they've been able to extend their deal with the NDP, we know that they'll get the New Democrat support, that pharmacare deal, which will be reflected in the budgetary numbers on April 16th. So that means we know this budget will pass. We won't be plunged into an election. But in terms of what the measures are going to be, I think, we're going to see more of the same. They've already said they're going to focus on housing, affordability, and jobs. And that makes sense if you're going by the polling numbers. But the challenge for the government, of course, is that it's got to punch through, because as your piece said, they're well behind in the polls to the Conservatives.
Right. So what does that look like tangibly, do you think? Or is it even possible to guess at this point, ways that they would try to connect and hit that mark with Canadians on those hot button topics like housing, for example?
Well, there are different ways to come at that issue. I think what the Liberals have demonstrated to us is they really want to focus in particular on trying to spur rental housing. So I think you'll probably see more of that. There are other questions about, can they do anything in the near term? So many of these measures that are put in place, and there's big billions of dollars being spent, but those take years to unfold and to actually manifest in terms of units that will be available 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road. They're looking at an election probably in 18 months. So they need measures that feel like they will make a difference in people's lives right away, whether that's more money back in your pocket or whether that's the promise of a place that you can live affordably in the near term. And that's why I wouldn't be surprised if they talk a lot about rental. That also, by the way, happens to correspond to the voter demographic, a little bit more urban, a little bit suburban, that the Liberals desperately want to win back from the Conservatives.
Have we ever had a time that you can remember where an issue like housing has been such a political hot button, when it's also, frankly, a topic where the market itself often decides the direction it goes?
Yeah, it's a real challenge. And that's a force that, affects what you can and cannot do as a finance minister. You want to be in the swim of the broad economic currents, macroeconomic currents, not fighting against them. And so many of the incentives that seem to be operating at play right now, interest rates remaining high. Now we'll see if over the course of the year they come down, but those things guard against more investment in people coming into the marketplace, taking on that great big mortgage. So they've got to find ways to operate in and around those macroeconomic concerns. But look, the problem, of course, is, just come back to it. How do you punch through? How do you persuade people that you're both being financially responsible, not blowing the bank, but at the same time making investments that will really make a difference in people's lives? Right now, it's almost falling on deaf ears. The challenge politically that this government has is that it could literally announce a cure for cancer and COVID, and people would say, yeah, right, I can't buy that, not off of you guys. They've got to overcome some of that cynicism, and a budget is a platform opportunity to do so.
One more thing, Scott, from the policy back to the politics of it all. We know that Pierre Poilievre has been surging in the polls, but we also know that this budget, as you said, will very likely pass because of the arrangement the Liberals and the NDP have. Even still, do you expect to see anything in this budget where the Liberals try to perhaps entice the NDP even more than that pharmacare deal?
I don't think so. And, they're really at war with themselves, the Liberals right now. You hear the finance minister pushing, as finance ministers tend to do, that we need to exert fiscal discipline. I think you'll see that they will come in under their budget projected from the fall. And they're talking about $10.5 billion in reallocated financing, cutting budgets of departments and sort of trying to say, well, we're actually taking money that we'd already allocated and we're putting that toward higher priorities like housing. But I think the thing you're going to hear from the Conservatives is this is the NDP and Liberal deal. This is the NDP and Liberal deal. They'll cement them together and try to make that a political anchor, not a political kite.
Budget branding. Okay.
Yes.
Scott Reid, political commentator. Really appreciate it, Scott. Thanks so much.
Have a great day. Thank you.
You as well.